Diaries, Dystopian Dreams, in which our anonymous author takes a trip through time, looks the zeitgeist in the eye, and sees the narrative of a new financial world being carved out in zeros and ones. The fire grows hotter. Visionaries who kindled the early flames are not surprised to see the turning heads of the once doubtful elite. A stubborn few still remain with their backs to the blaze, seemingly prepared to stay that way until they are engulfed by the advancing inferno. Yet again, voices cry out that we are at boiling point, that now is the time to rise from the ashes and let loose the financial revolution. But is this level of optimism deserved? Burnt by the growing heat of the technological furnace, the closest skeptics melt away, sneers turn to self-seeking strategy, and cynics cry for redemption or amnesia as they shun their past beliefs and join the line to fuel the fire. Bullish news updates fan the flames of this new financial era, but can the light shine through the peaks and troughs of this dark and volatile market? The inevitability, the race for digital currency has reached a governmental level. Behind the scenes, the United States, Europe, and China are scrambling to understand and regulate this technology, whilst fighting to not get swept away by the flow of innovation. To maintain a competitive edge, existing financial systems have to accept some loss of control and swim with the current rather than fight to close the floodgates. As the world realizes the redundancy of the greedy middleman, empowerment will flow across all industries as unprecedented forms of monetization emerge. A new generation. Children born into the uncertain era of the coronavirus will reach adolescence in a strange new world, one of invasive and total monetization. The whole media industry will be overtaken and empowered by social tokens, bringing a breath of fresh air to the creative industries, which depend so much on their online followings to succeed. In the modern technopoly, the greatest challenges are psychological, as the undisciplined mind is easily lost to social media, endlessly scrolling into the unknown. Global politics will become increasingly polarized, yet the invincibility of uncensorable code will appeal to libertarians and bohemians alike. With shrewd investments from industry leaders, innovative development continues. The cycle of change becomes tighter, and technological advancements accelerate. A new economy will arise, self-started careers will flourish, and increased remote working combined with globalized currencies will begin to level the playing field as a technological meritocracy becomes the economic standard. The altruistic applications of Web 3.0 will change the public perception of charity, and matured DAOs will become household names, just as non-governmental organizations are today. However, not all DAO activity will win the approval of the public. Governance protocol wars will scale drastically, and as the battle for power between banks, big tech, and governments becomes more aggressive, we will see complex game theory being utilized as a weapon to manipulate not just protocols, but entire democracies. The tension between the US, China, and the EU will escalate, and decentralized currencies increase instability as countries lose control of their printing machines. China will be quick to tokenize yuan and issue it on-chain, forcing the US to adapt or get left behind. Governments will have to incentivize their citizens to use their native currency over the decentralized alternative. Some will enforce this by law, while others will take a more liberal approach. But an alternative global economy will develop regardless. During this radical transition, some citizens will suffer while their neighbors prosper, as different leaders take their own approach to regulation and apply different limitations upon their people. Those who allow for total financial freedom still face dangers, as the unexpecting public become exposed to the experienced hackers and slick arbitrageurs of the decentralized underworld. Nations will not only be forced to create and adapt to an on-chain economy in their own country, but also learn to defend themselves against interference from attacking states which try to disrupt and influence their politics by any means necessary. Certain governments will restrict or eliminate tools of our industry which are most exposed to regulation, such as stable coins or centralized exchanges. Users of Coinbase or Tether are at the mercy of the corporations which own them, and ultimately the governments which regulate said corporations. Fanning the flames. We'll look back on DeFi summer with nostalgia, a naive but entertaining time, where we forged gamified concepts that later became utilitarian applications. Bitcoin faded away during the birth of DeFi, but it never lost its status. Its return to the limelight was inevitable, and the global turmoil of 2020 only strengthened the appeal of BTC as an investment. With the benefit of hindsight, we'll see that DeFi summer brought increased liquidity and volatility to the markets, capturing the attention of some larger players who used their influence to turn the eye of the market onto the large cap currencies where they feel most comfortable. Optimism around Bitcoin and Ethereum continues to rise, triggered in 2020 by bullish news from established financial institutions such as JPM, Square, and MicroStrategy. Those who are bold enough to look the zeitgeist in the eye and place their bets accordingly will reap huge rewards over the coming years, as the narrative of the new financial world is carved out in zeros and ones. A tokenized world. Unfortunately, tribalism never fades away entirely. Conflict-loving maximalists will always try to smear the work of others, but as cross-chain interoperability and tokenization becomes commonplace, the arguments will become less passionate. The quantity of Bitcoin on the Ethereum network started to increase rapidly in 2020. By the third quarter, it had increased by over 13,000%, from 1,100 wrapped Bitcoins in January to 150,000 in late October. We now look back on 2020 as a tipping point for tokenization, not just of Bitcoin, but of real-world assets, as FTX offered trading of tokenized Tesla shares on-chain for the first time. The ability to tokenize physical assets results in financial ruin for the less disciplined gambler, as they are able to use their real-world assets as on-chain collateral. Court cases will be opened in the hundreds or thousands, as the prices of private companies' stocks are copied onto the blockchain, allowing speculators to trade the volatility in a mirrored financial market that pays nothing to the middleman. Bitcoin treasuries in publicly traded companies will continue to grow, with Square's purchase of approximately 4,709 Bitcoins at an aggregate purchase price of $50 million being one of the most eye-catching announcements of this kind in 2020. With an economic environment prime for inflation, Jack Dorsey saw a growing role for Bitcoin, and he was not alone in doing so. When publicly traded companies purchase Bitcoin, it is a treasury management decision, not speculation. Post-2020, having some percentage of the company treasury in Bitcoin becomes a common promotional narrative, encouraging other businesses to invest for the publicity as well as the potential profit. Dollars and cents. Learning in public will become a widely recognized form of career progression, and numerically minded autodidacts will thrive. As the multi-million-dollar hacks and exploits that are so common in cryptocurrency start to reach the mainstream news, ambitious students willing to bend the rules will start to choose computer science and software development over accounting or business studies. However, white hat hackers will also be in high demand, and as hacking or exploiting grows harder over time and new standards emerge, the safety of the entire industry will improve. Multiple billion-dollar companies will be founded by small teams of young developers working from only a laptop, and thus the balance of power will shift. The non-stop globalized nature of this new open financial industry will encourage companies to geographically diversify their workforces, and skills or experience will be valued over qualifications. COVID-19 has had a lasting impact on the global economy, and some industries will never recover. Some jobs will be lost to the new technology, as wherever profitable, the inefficient human employee is replaced by a sophisticated smart contract or well-trained AI. A human employee is costly and unpredictable, but code operates as instructed. The DeFi market cap may fall, it may even drop by 80% or more, but the best projects will inevitably come back stronger. Eventually, banks will race to use DeFi, if not for the yield, then merely for the savings on their daily transactions. When the first Western High Street bank begins to offer DeFi-level interest rates to their customers, the floodgates will open, and all banks will implement the technology, shaking up councils and governments across the world. Decentralization will be measured on a spectrum, with full DeFi providing little to no safety net in the form of customer service or refunds, and their centralized counterparts providing a more familiar, safer space, but with less flexibility and control over the user's funds. Jumping the hurdles. Progress will not be linear. There will be hurdles, restrictions, scams, and market crashes. However, the shared vision is key. This industry and the desire for financial freedom is not going away. The only uncertainty is how, not if, we will arrive at our goal of mass adoption. A world based on maths, code, and binary liquidation is not for everyone, and watered-down aspects of DeFi will be provided for those who are uncomfortable with barebacking smart contracts via Etherscan. Centralized entities will remain for those who are uncomfortable with the risks and responsibility of owning your own private keys, and the spectrum of DeFi will expand to cover the entire financial system. The flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long. We must focus on the trend and not the volatility. Our goal is not to light up the room, but to illuminate a path to a new financial system that the entire world can follow. Let's not build more experiments for the experts, but instead create tools that welcome newcomers, that invite them in, and provide a better future that empowers us all.